All right, welcome to Be the Market Expert. And wanted to kick it off with this story from Resi Club. And it says Zillow turns housing bear. And it says, just look at its updated 2025 housing forecast. And so it goes through and it says Zillow projects that US home prices will fall about 1.7% between March of 25 until March of 26. I said last month, Zillow's economists still thought US prices would rise this year. So I think first and foremost, no one has a crystal ball. I think that's where we need to land immediately is that a month ago they were saying up, now they're saying down. But let's just take a look at this. So they're doing off of their data. And here we go. It says among the three largest US metro areas in the housing markets, Zillow expects the strongest home price appreciation between March 2025 and 2026 to occur in these 10 areas. So the 10 areas that it believes, we're going to have New Jersey, New York, Tennessee, Connecticut. Um, we have Michigan, New York, New Jersey, New Hampshire, and Connecticut. And so if we look at this thing, it's 2.4% to 1.2%, and that's the straw. And we know historically speaking, we've seen homes appreciate year over year at 4%, right? That's just kind of where we have leveled out. And I think the biggest thing is if we were to go back to just our data from just when we see them at family reunion from KWRI, and we are looking at this, we are significantly above the 4% trend line right now. And so the fact that we could potentially be seeing some kind of correction, if you will, I think the biggest thing that we need to keep in mind is that we have home owners with mortgages out there that have some of the best balance sheets that we have had in forever, right? When we're looking at this thing, the equity that homeowners have. And I remember a story coming out like 2 years ago, and it was about how people were losing value on their homes. And it's simply just not the case. And we just need to be making sure that we're having the conversations because the loudest voice in the room is going to take the most mind share. And so when we have our consumers that are going on to Fox, CNN, Twitter, YouTube, insert whatever media channel here, and they're running some kind of article talking about people losing value in their homes, they do believe it. And so I think that's where it's very important for us to be making sure that we're reaching out on the home anniversaries and when it's tax day, right? When we're going through and we're providing value to our consumers and we are showing them this is how much you bought your home and this is the balance sheet today. Because unless you bought your home in the last 2 years, you have to be net positive, pretty close net positive, unless you've done something where you have taken the equity out, right? Because that's very real. We are seeing some short sales and some foreclosures. We have seen some people not pay, and now their forbearances are have come due, and like all that's very real. But if we look at this thing, this is not 2006 by any extent of the imagination, right? When we're looking at this thing, we're not going to see foreclosures and short sales all the way down the streets, right? Like that's not this. Now, I'm also happy to report this. We're also not in the bottom 10. All right, so we're not in the top 10 for appreciation, which we can understand that. We have one of the highest price states in the nation when it comes to housing. And then if we look at this, we got LA, Los Angeles, not Los Angeles. We got Louisiana, right? When we're looking at this thing, we got New Orleans, we got Lafayette, we got a bunch of this Louisiana taking the L, I guess, right? Taking the loss in this category, right? Texas is on there as well. But if we were to look at this also makes sense to us. When we're going through and we think about what they have going on, they have unfortunately higher crime rates. They have um, higher higher insurance rates that are down there, right? Because they do have natural disasters that move through. And so when we're looking at this, like this shouldn't make, huge headlines for us either. We're looking at this, we see, 5.5% when we look at, the, the bottom of the top, and then all the way up to negative 10% appreciation. Now, I would say for Louisiana, and when we see stuff like this actually probably would make a huge impact on their state, right? Like if we were to see some negative appreciation, I just don't think that we're gonna, be hit too hard. I actually think this will hit their state. 10%, that's pretty big. So we'll kind of monitor this. Rachel says the impact on tariffs and imports. Yeah, absolutely, right? If we're looking at a port state where they have people going through, and that is their jobs, right? Is to be going through and taking product coming in, then absolutely, right? We could see higher unemployment. So higher unemployment happens, and now we have less people being able to qualify for homes. Yeah, absolutely. We can see this like historically, like even back in what 2008, 2009, when we were retiring like coal plants, coal mines in some of these states. Like I remember going through New Mexico, and New Mexico, they had just gotten rid of one of their big coal mines up in the northern part of New Mexico. And I remember driving through some of these neighborhoods, and they had boarded up the houses, truly because there was no industry anymore. So yes, absolutely. When the industry in these areas, when they start getting impacted, and especially with unemployment, we will start to see less desirability, and it'll be it'll be interesting to kind of see what happens. Only in the sense to where I just don't think that banks are in the market to be taking over homes, right? Like that's not what they're wanting to do. So we'll see kind of what creative stuff that they look at, especially if this is true, right? If this comes to fruition in 2026, we see -10%, -9, and -7, all the way down to 5%, and there's no one moving to those areas. It'll be interesting to see what the banks do so that they're not taking up a bunch of inventory and have product just sitting, on their balance sheets, because they don't want that either. So we'll kind of monitor this and kind of see what happens. Then I wanted to bring up this one. And so this just came out yesterday. It says nearly half of all home sellers are offering concessions. So Redfin went through, and keep in mind, Redfin's going to keep making the news for the next couple of months. And if we were to look at this thing, says Redfin found out that 44% of all homes that were sold from January through March included some kind of concession, either towards repairs and or closing costs. All right. And so we've seen this, right? Like, and this is what has been, I'm gonna say fun, right? This is what has been fun inside of this new state of the industry of real estate, is that we thought there was going to be this huge disruption when these NAR settlements came out, and that real estate was going to be upside down on its head, and it was going to cause a lot of stress points. I would say this is actually the opposite. I would say that the biggest stress point that we probably have is interest rates not moving in a direction that we want them to move, but yet we have so much power for negotiating for our clients inside of the contracting instrument right now. This is awesome. But if we look at this, we see half of all home sellers, 44%. It says that was up from 39% a year ago. And if we were to look at this thing, so up 39% 1 year ago, well, what we're looking at, we have these regional disparities, right? But here, let's go look, and we got this information, I think last week. And when we were at this, we can look and see what our friends over at Land Title sent us, and we can see 54%, right? Percent with a concession. We have 54.7%. And so if we were to look at this, and I think this is important to have with our buyers and sellers, right? Because we can almost imagine the conversations are going to come up about, moving to different states and or staying in Colorado and prices and insert whatever here. And we can see that nationally speaking, right, we can have this conversation. We can say, hey, you know what, nationally speaking, we can say that 44% of all homes this year have taken some kind of concession, whether it was the seller did not want to repair something, so they gave money towards the fix, and or they gave some kind of concession to ease the financial burden for the buyers with the interest rates being where they are. And if we were to look at this thing, we can say that we're right on track in the state of Colorado. The state of Colorado is not much different. And yet we are seeing a little bit more concessions. And we can take this data, right, because we have it, and we can actually look and say, you know what, if we're under $500,000, we have an average concession in the state of Colorado around $7,700. And Linda says, love the reminder that interest rates have gone down, and they absolutely have, right? Interest rates have gone down, and the unfortunate piece is that a lot of us have lived in a time. All of us have lived in a time, but we have buyers and sellers that remember when interest rates were 3% back in 2021. But we know that they're, historically speaking, hover between 5 and 6%. But yet we have been so close to this 3% in recent history that when we go up to the 6% and we've doubled, right? The people are like, whoa, 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 pump the brakes. And with that being said, we also look at, we have some of the highest priced homes that we have had as a nation. And so when we couple the price of homes with the cost of money, we have an affordability issue, and that's the conversation. But when we're having this conversation and we have this data, right? So we're partnering with our lender partners and we're figuring out what they have available. And then we go through and we figure out what the concession is in the price point. And we say, okay, well, I have a $500 to $1 million buyer, and we're seeing $9,500 in concessions on average in the state of Colorado. So, what does $9,500 do for our consumers as far as buy downs and easing the burden of the cost of money in our state? And so, I think both of these articles coupled together, I think are very important. This is what makes you the real estate economist of choice. When we're going through and we are helping our people win, this is how we do that. We can't affect prices. We can't affect interest rates. What we can do is we can be a fiduciary inside of the contracting instrument, and we have this knowledge. And even if our clients don't need it, right? Let's just say you have super well qualified buyers. Isn't this still a win? Like, wouldn't this still be a win if we could just go through and we have a conversation with them and we find out that there's a home on the market that doesn't have a whole lot of competition on it, and your client wants the home, but yet if there's no other offers and we can do something to where we can actually put an additional $9,500 in their pocket to help them with either interest rates and or some kind of buy down, like, this is what we should be doing, guys. Like, we should be looking, even if the lender doesn't tell us, we should be having a conversation with their lender and say, hey, if we were to be able to get some kind of concession, what would we be able to do for their rates? I think it's important information to have. This article came out the other day as well. This came out on the 17th. And it says home builders pull back on construction as the trade war sets in. And this was kind of interesting when we're looking at this thing. I want to go down to this one slide. Just kidding. That's not the one I wanted. Holding pattern. Oh, maybe that is. No, I think they actually pulled a slide out, but this is the article. So we'll look at this thing. So what we have going on, I think they did actually pull an image out of this article from the last time I saw it yesterday. And this is interesting. So here we go. Let's look at this. And it says housing permits and housing starts. And they are going through COVID-19 recession level lows, right? So we have 2021. We're looking over here. Here's 2020. And we are fast forward. We are in 2025. All right, cool. So there's your timeline. Well, if we look at this thing, we have housing starts. Well, so if we're going through, we can actually look the pretty low in 2019. And then we have the pandemic, it gets even lower. Then we have this cost of money get kind of cheap. And we start to see them pick back up, and they're like, we got some demand, and then they start teetering back off. Well, that's start. Well, then we look at over here, and this is permits. So if we're looking at permits, and this is total permits, this is both condos So attached and detached. All right. So this is total number. And if we were to look at this, cool, 2019, 2020, the world's coming to an end. We saw a huge dip. And then they're able to kind of play in 2021, 2022. They're still moving in 2022 because interest rates don't truly, high interest rates do not disproportionately affect builders in a negative manner because they're their own bank. So they're able to go through and add incentives and do some other things. And that's why when we have a conversation with a lender, and then the lender, our client now decides they want to go with a new build, the lenders are out of the picture for the most part because they can't compete with the incentives that a preferred lender with a new build community has. But then we start to see it kind of teeter off again. Well, this is the one we should be looking at because this is total permit. But let's look at single family. Single family. Guys, this is the reason why when we're talking about the housing crash, the Airbnb bust, the silver tsunami, to insert whatever garbage headline here that our clients have unfortunately heard from insert news media channel here. This is why simply it will not happen. There is not enough housing that is going through and being built to meet the demand of the amount of people that we have in the United States. Here's the thing. The United States isn't getting any smaller. I don't care what we're seeing as the headlines for, mass deportations as far as when we're looking at the size of the United States population. We have a growing population. There's no world where we can have a mass exodus enough to where it is going to negatively impact the entire population in the sense of a people count. All right. So, like, insert here, when we're looking at this thing, we have people getting married, we have people having babies, babies get older, they have babies, right? Like, this is what happens. Babies don't have babies, but babies turn into adults and adults have babies, right? Like, this is what this looks like. We have a population that's continuously growing. We have some of the more laxed uh, regulations when it goes through people coming into the United States. All right. We have a growing population. This, when we look at this and we see single family home permits going down, this is why we're not going to see a housing crash because the builders got caught holding the bag back in 2006, 2008, right? They were building, they were building, they were building. It was the gold rush. And then everything happened and they got caught holding on to a lot of inventory and they got hurt. Now they have their hands on the spigot, right? They are going to turn it up and turn it down to make sure that they are capitalizing on their profits. They are not the March of Dimes. They are not a charity. They are a for-profit company with shareholders. So when this is happening, what they're going to do is they're going to look and they are going to slowly trickle in inventory and sell it. And I think Colorado, for the most part, every builder in Colorado, guys, we can absolutely see this. We don't see too many builders building on spec, right? You don't see a bunch of homes pop up and then these builders try to sell them. Yes, there are a couple of builders in Colorado that still build on spec. But for the most part, what do we see? We see a plot of dirt. We go into the sales office. They have the green and the red circles on the plat map. And our consumers, our clients get to go out. They get to say, I want this piece of land. They give a deposit, a non-refundable deposit, and the builder starts the process of building the home. And that's what makes this so much different than the 2006 time period, right? Is that builders are not just building and praying like if we build it, they will come. They have the land, they have the ability, they take money, and they start the process. Then they go to the design center and they give them more money and they start doing the additional upgrades. The builders are not stupid, right? And so I think this is going to be very interesting as we're going through and we're looking at this. This is one of the biggest reasons why I don't see home prices going down. There's going to be places, yes, where we're going to see it, Texas and Florida, two of the largest populous areas that we have as far as land mass and people and housing, and where we could see some home values go down in certain areas. But yet, this is why I don't see us in Colorado taking a massive hit, only because we see the slow drip of new builds that are going to be coming on. And so all we will truly have is single family residences, right? And we have to keep in mind this. We also have a population, whether it's the millennials that have been in the basement eating avocado toast, or and I'm allowed to say that because I'm a millennial, or when we go through and we look at our Gen Z population, for the most part, these are buyers, these are consumers that are taking inventory off the board and they're not putting any inventory on the board when they're purchasing, right? They don't have houses to sell. And so now as we're going through, we're going to have more people coming into money, more people coming into age. And what's going to happen is they are going to say that, hey, I want to purchase a home. Well, they don't have a home to sell. So we couple lack of homes being put back onto the board as a generation is coming of age and coming into some money and purchasing housing. And we couple that with the new builds putting less inventory. This is what's going to keep the supply lower and the demand higher as these years are here to come. So we'll continue to watch this, but this is I think this is why we're not going to see too much distress, at least in Colorado. So let's look at Logan Moshami and what Logan Moshami has to say. Quick update, I just got an update on my phone. The Edits app for Instagram is now available, is what I just got. So be checking that on your apps. So we look at this thing, it says the weekly home sales data for last week was a big surprise. He said, if someone were to have told me that the beginning of the year would have been mortgage rates fluctuating between 6.4 and 7.25, trade war escalations, stocks flipping into bear market territory and confidence data collapsing, I would think housing demand would be negative year to date and year over year. And he goes, yet amidst all those conditions, our weekly data showed positive year over year growth in housing demand following the first reversal from the lower rates this year, where they briefly surpassed 7%. This unexpected resilience has genuinely amazed me, even as someone who highlights the historic lows in housing home sales have given us a low bar. And he says, can this trend continue with elevated mortgage rates? And it says, as inventory is increasing and price growth slows, we are positioning ourselves for a better housing market when mortgage rates fall towards 6%. Yeah, guys, like this is the thing. At the end of the day, this is all good, right? Like, yes, interest rates going up, not good. And yet we have more inventory. And let's keep in mind who's putting their homes on the market is the motivated. And yes, I get it. There are people that bought at a high that are having to sell and they're going to potentially lose money. There's people that purchase their home and they have refinanced and refinanced and refinanced, and now the music has stopped and they are going to potentially lose money on their home. But again, if we were to look at the balance sheets of most homeowners, they have positive equity positions in their houses. Even if home prices are going down, these people that have lived in their home for a couple of years, they are going to net dollars in their pockets. And so when we're going through and we're having this conversation, that means that there is room for negotiations for our buyers. And when we're going through and we're looking at this means that when we are having our clients raise their hands saying, hey, I want to go purchase a property, and we're looking at homes and there's X amount of homes in the neighborhood, that means that those motivated sellers that have put their home on the market, there is room for negotiation because there is X amount of more houses that are like for like kind that if we cannot put a deal together on home A, we can go to B, C, and D, which is a huge win for us and our clients. So let's look at it. Purchase application data. Given recent increase in mortgage rates, he anticipated a more significant decline in both week to week and year over year data. Surprisingly, the week to week decline was only 5%, notably less than his expectation. So, yes, here's your visual representation on that. It did go down. But guys, it wasn't a huge decrease. Right there, the American dream is not dead. People still want to buy houses. And I think that the biggest thing is it comes down to the cost of money. So again, we looked at the information. We have concessions. This does ease the burden. Yes, it's not a 30-year or even a 15-year fix. But when we're looking at this information, we can drop it maybe 2 years, maybe 1 year, maybe even 3 years, right? We got 3, 2, 1 buy downs. We got 2, 1 buy downs. We got 1 buy downs. And yet we know that we can go out, we can get concessions for our buyers. And our buyers are still going out here. This was not a huge drop. And we have to keep in mind, where are all these people at? All of these people that have raised their hand to talk to a lender to find out what they qualify for. What are they doing? We saw less people raise their hand, but still, guys, this is just an indication that less people rose their hand this go around. It wasn't that less people are now in the market for a home. It means that this last week, less people actually went out and talked to a lender, but there's still people out there. Fewer. Yeah, fewer. Thank you. I just feel like Rachel and Linda are yelling back and forth to each other. Yeah, fewer. So when we're looking at this thing, it's not that there is less of a population. The word is fewer. There's fewer people last week that raised their hand to talk to a lender versus the week prior. And so this still is an opportunity for us. As the real estate economists of choice, how are we taking massive, massive mind share to get in front of our people so that they understand that we can help them and we have the data and we know the contracting instruments and we know the price points of where these concessions make sense to where we can help them win. So let's scroll down a little bit further. And here's your weekly total pendings. We're right in the mix, right? We're not in 2022, but again, this 2022 data is going to intersect here very, very soon. I'm calling it right now. We are going to intersect and we are going to go across this information. But right now, we are living in 2024, 2023. We are right in there. So we have people, guys, this should tell us, even with rates of where they are, we are still seeing more people today with homes under contract pending data. And keep in mind this data, when we look at this is when interest rates were super low for 2022, right? And then we started seeing interest rates go up and people were no longer locked in and we started seeing it drop. So that's why we see this decline right here. We should, for all intents and purposes, we will see an intersection probably coming across here somewhere where we start outpacing 2022. We go through and we look at this. We're not going to talk about the 10-year yield. We're not going to talk about treasury, the spreads. We're not going to talk about any about that, but let's talk about inventory. Guys, we have 32% more inventory as a nation right now than we did last year. Guys, this is great news. Keep in mind, right? We talk about this. 2019 is what we consider a normal market, right? We didn't have the pandemic. We didn't have super low interest rates. We didn't have the interest rates hovering at 8%. And so we consider 2019 to be a normal market. Keep in mind, 2019 being a normal market, we have less people living in homes. We have less of a population than we currently do today. And so we need more inventory. Being in a balanced market is a-okay, guys. Yes, homes will sit for a little bit longer. Your buyers will probably be a little bit more picky. And yet what we will see in a more of a balanced market with interest rates coming down is that we will see more collaboration at the table coming together where it's more of a give take and a give to where both parties are willing to meet in the middle to make the transaction happen. And so we want to see this continue to climb. Continue to climb 32%, though we are on the right track. New listings data, like if we look at this thing and we're just looking at just the different months and over year, right? Here we are. We have more single family new listings coming to the market, right? As we're looking at this. Also great news, right? As we continue, we have 77,000 new listings versus 2024, we had 68,000. 2023, we had 59,000. Guys, we want to see more homes. Even with rates doing what rates did, we're still seeing sellers raise their hand. And why that's a big deal is because we know that for the most part, sellers become buyers, right? When someone goes to sell their house, they're typically going to another home. And yes, there are some outliers where that's not necessarily the case. But yet, historically speaking, we know that when someone sells their house, they're buying another home. And so the fact that we're actually still seeing people put their home on the market means that these interest rates are not scaring people off. When we were to consider what 2 years ago, we were talking about the golden handcuffs, right? We had the golden handcuffs where people had these 3% interest rates, and we're like, no one's going to get rid of their 3% interest rate and jump into a 7 and 8. And while that might have been true at some level, well, we have to keep in mind those 3% interest rates are still out there, and people are giving them up for a 6 and a 7 right now. So life happens. There are different motivations that are going. And so what are we doing to get in front of as many people as humanly possible? Because all of this data is pointing to people are still buying and selling houses. Price cuts, 35%. We know historically speaking, 1/3 of all homes take a price cut. We're sitting at 35%. And when we're looking at this, guys, this is what's interesting. We have more homes coming onto the market, some in the same neighborhood. When we know about the principle of substitution, we know that your clients are not going to go out and buy the same product for more money if they can get it cheaper somewhere else. Insert Amazon, right? Like we talk about convenience. And so if we look at this thing, when we're going through, this is not surprising. We have motivated people putting their home on the market. Homes are sitting for a little bit longer. During that time, another home hits the market. They're typically undercutting. And now we're having to see, like, okay, if you're motivated, we have to get underneath the competition. So 35%, this isn't huge. We know we're right in line. So it's this week ahead. And keep in mind, this is all Friday data. So we're currently on Tuesday. It says this week, several Federal Reserve presidents will speak, which is likely to generate significant media attention. And it has. I don't know if anyone's been on Twitter right now with President Trump and the Fed presidents shooting stuff back and forth at one another. Guys, this is the thing. Like, we knew this was coming, right? We know that the president doesn't control the Fed, and we know the Fed doesn't control the president. These are two different entities inside of the United States that do not govern one another. And all they can do is throw shots across the bow. And essentially, it's this: you don't like Americans if you don't drop interest rates, and they will say, you don't like Americans if you don't drop the tariffs, right? And that's what we're going to see. And what this is going to come down to is who is the loudest voice. That's all that's going to happen, guys. We're going to see what happens, but it's going to have to be on their own time. Neither one of these sides can force the other one to take a different stance. It's going to come down to what they want to do. And so it says expressing interest in replacing Powell. President Trump can talk about replacing Powell all day long. For all intents and purposes, there's no world where he can make that happen. He can just be the louder voice and have consumer sentiment not super favorable towards him, and that's all. So he says, we're going to look at reports on new and existing home sales this week. And since our weekly data is slightly ahead of these figures, we expect a month-over-month decline in existing home sales. Furthermore, we are going to service the PMI reports along with the Michigan consumer sentiment, guys. So this will all happen on Friday. So next Tuesday, we should be looking at all of this. But let's look at rates like we always do. And here it is. This is 1 month of time, guys. And so if we're looking at this thing, we are looking on the 24th until today, again, because we're always pretty much a day behind, and they have gone up, right? So if we were to look at this, we're seeing a conforming loan at 6.8 and then FHA at 6.5. And this is optimal blue. So this is not prime. This is what they are seeing most consumers being able to qualify for. And so this kind of gives you a better snapshot of where we are, and it has gone up. And again, it's going to be because of this teeter-totter of this tariff war that we're seeing, where some countries are saying, okay, we'll play ball. Other countries are saying no. We are seeing some different things though. So it's going to be very interesting, I think, as this month kind of plays on into next month. I do believe they're going to go back down. I did see something where I think that China is installing a new trade commerce president. I think, if you will, I don't think they're called presidents out there. Um, but they're going to go through and they want them to have better relationships with the United States because they believe that that will have an easier conversation going back and forth with the stances that the current administration has taken. And so we'll kind of see how this thing plays out as we're going through. But like I said, I do believe that interest rates start to come back down over the next, couple days. And if we look at Altos data, because we are an ALLOT2, let's look and see what's happening in real time in the market center's zip code. So we can see the median list price has stayed flat while the new list price has gone up. While the new list price has gone up, I think what's important to keep in mind is our average days on market has gone down, while price decreases have also started going down, but they're at 42%. So guys, this is the biggest thing, is the real estate economist of choice. And we're looking at this information, and we should be, right? We should be going to DMAR and grabbing information. We should be going to RE Colorado and grabbing information. And even not as a member, you have access to all of that. We should be looking at this information. On the RE Colorado, as a member, we also have InfoSpark, so where we can pull in information for neighborhoods and zip codes and cities. And we should be pulling this and taking this to our sellers for these listing conversations, so that we can make sure that when we're figuring out what their motivations are, that we can actually have a conversation with them so that we can strategically place their home to sell in the quickest amount of time for the least amount of money for the less amount of hassle possible. But if we look at this, right, average days on market 62 versus the median day 32, but we're still seeing 42% in price decreases, which tells me we have homes that are sitting on the market for just long enough to where the motivation is now going up. There's no, I need to sell my house. And it's because another home has come on the market, and or they have sat for so long that the price that they determined that they wanted to sell it for is no longer realistic. What's also interesting, guys, and this goes back to what we just talked about. This goes back to this home builder, right? We talked about these single family home permits going down. Well, if we look at this, guys, this is price increases. This is new build, right? This is phase 2, phase 3, phase 4 of new build communities. Guys, in ALLOT2, at least, it has stayed flat. They have not brought new homes to market at a price increase. Guys, and we will continue to see this play out. Yes, builders have gone through and they have purchased more land. They have been holding on to land. They've been doing things, and they're not going to just sit on it. They have to build at some point. But yet, they're going to release it at a level to where they're still making money. And this is case in point, at least over here. Guys, there's plenty of new build communities over in ALLOT2. And we can see that they're not raising their prices because they're releasing less and less inventory to at least keep their prices flat to make money. Relisted home, 4%, that has stayed flat and has gone down a little bit to where we've seen people not come to the table to put a deal together because of just too much differences. We're seeing an inventory score of 24. Your median rent in ALLOT2 is $2,900. And they're giving it this a market action report of 46. So we're still in a seller's market. We're just in a seller's market where the motivation is out there to where they're more willing to have a conversation with their buyer to be able to get a deal closed.